Thank you to everybody for attending. It's Wednesday, the 26th of February, and there's a communities in place overview and scrutiny committee. So, item 1, apologies for absence.
Just doing a quick double check there.
Gordon Castle rang me on Monday to apologise. He was at a funeral.
I think we've got everybody else present.
Everybody else present, that's great. Item 2, does anybody have any members' interest to disclose? No. Item 3, which is an information item, forward plan of cabinet decisions. Is there anything you want to raise, Sean?
Nothing to add other than we'll highlight on page 12 the rights way improvement plan. If we look on our work programme, we'll see that was actually listed as an issue that would probably come to you at the early stage, but clearly it's gone through now.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And now on to the
Yes, Chair.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah.
I was just going to mention the food strategy. Northumberland food strategy went to cabinet in February. Is that something that might be of interest to this committee? Something that maybe we should consider adding to
Yeah, what sort of timescale? Presumably the strategy's gone to the committee. Do we leave it a bit of time to bed down and see how it's working? I haven't read it, so I don't know what's in it.
Best view.
So do we? Yeah, I mean, I think but maybe we just give it a few months to bed in. Does anybody know anything about it? Food strategy. Richard, do you know anything about
Which one is it?
the Northumberland food strategy?
I do know a bit about it. Yes.
Is it something that includes sort of policies that we need to give time to bed in before we bring it to?
So
It's gone through cabinet already, hasn't it?
yeah, so the Northumberland food strategy is a few things. Really, it's our attempt to to evolve produced in Northumberland, but also tie it into the inequalities agenda and various other work streams, the farming work stream that we've been doing, trying to promote the uptake of local produce, making sure that people are eating good quality food, trying to tie that in with the services that the council provides, trying to take that to a more national and even global showcase, try to in terms of some added value in terms of businesses involved, and so on and so forth. So there's a real quick snapshot.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry to drop that on you.
No.
Said that.
So I was just looking at the time to see if it's been.
Yeah.
You did. Can I just ask a question? Don't have any minutes from the last meeting. The minutes.
There's been a very tight turnaround
Right, so-
between.
All right.
So we'll get them in the next meeting.
That's
The
all.
last meeting was the 29th of January,
That
and by
wasn't
the time,
there.
sadly, we
Just wondered. I thought I had missed them off or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll get them at the next meeting. So, Nick, what I'll suggest is that if Sean has a word with the officers that are involved, and a bit of a discussion about when it would be pertinent to bring it and when it would add most value, rather than just saying, well, we want it next month or whatever, and then if you could just sort of agree something and
With a new committee.
yeah.
They may take a different view.
Yeah, when we all lost our seats, it'll be a whole load of different people sitting around the table.
We all have.
Let's pick them on that.
Good, excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much. So item 4.1 is Storm Arwen update, and I think this is the third time
I believe it is, Chair.
it's been to this committee. So I'll Gordon, will you introduce it? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, committee members. We have more storms than ever, and you're absolutely right to ask for an update on what is entitled Storm Arwen. But as you see in the papers being produced for you, there's been several storms at different degrees impacting upon these counties. So it's not as if the old days, the adage may be that you would be hit in very rural areas. We know that lots of areas have been hit by storms at various degrees. We've progressed since Storm Arwen, I believe, in various ways. We haven't got it perfect. We're still working on that. And our partners, Northern Power Grid, coming for a lot of criticism. They're improving as well. So I think the best for me, Chair, is to allow Helen to go through a PowerPoint. That's where we're going to play it and then take questions.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Helen.
Hopefully you've seen the slides, and we'll just quickly whiz through those and the one we get them up. Just the first slide, which should be in the pack, is actually just a bit of background to remind people how far we've come. There are people in the room that have been on that journey with me, kind of every step of the way, really, from the task and finish group that was convened following Storm Arwen, with those 28 recommendations, that the 2 reports that have been brought previously. And just a quick reminder that we have actually experienced 12 named storms. So there's those 12 named storms, and you've chosen the hardest pronounced for me to come back and report against. So I believe it's pronounced Storm Eowyn. Please forgive me if that's not correct. So that's just a quick reminder of where we've been on this particular journey. And really, I hope that you can see from the slides that it's quite a positive story. It's come a long way since we responded in 2021. We now have our Northumberland Incident Response Plan. We are on version 2.2. That's publicly available. So if anybody would like to see that, that is on our website and can be seen by anyone. It's very clear in that plan what our activation procedures are, what our command and control structure is for the organisation, and that's developed over the last couple of years as well. And then we have a number of action cards, information cards, and templates. In addition to that, we've updated our severe weather plan, and it was in draft, so it was tested during Storm Berg and Storm Sarah, but then it was signed off by executive management team, and the same was for Storm Eowyn. So we had that plan in place, and it was activated and it was used. And we've also got our on-call rotors. We've always had the Duty Civil Contingency Officer, which is provided by my team. But we now have very clearly delineated strategic and tactical roles on call as well, provided by members of NCC, and always ably supported by our NFRS colleagues, so fire service playing an integral part in our response as well. And we've now got our training and exercise programme in place for our on-call team. Yesterday, we ran an internal strategic business continuity exercise for our executive management team. So there's always things going on. Community resilience, which was something that the recommendations from Storm Arwen actually were really touched on about working with our communities. And we've now got, well, last time we planned to do anything, but I write that number down on a daily basis. It's been communities that are coming to us directly and asking to work with them. And the idea of the community response hub is it's a building that's owned by the community, run by the community, and can be activated by the community. So we've worked really hard with our communities to get them to be empowered, make decisions on how they should respond to support their own communities. And there was certainly that was seen in the response to Storm Eowyn. And we've run some community resilience forums over the last 12 months. First one being in Muller, and I know Councillor Dale was at the one in Hexham. And we've done them at Bellingham, Cramley and Alnwick, Berwick as well. And we're going to be looking at doing one online in the future, just because of some of the geographical challenges that we have. So looking specifically at the storm, I think one of the things I would highlight is that the Met Office warned us about this quite a far way out. So we got our first warning on Tuesday. It was yellow, and sometimes you can think a yellow warning, you don't need to do much, but actually our plans are predicated on where it is in the impact column. So if you do receive Met Office warnings, I'd always encourage you to look at where the assessment is on the impact column. And it was in high impact column. And if you follow that up, high impact can move up to red. It's the only impact score that ever moves up to red. That moved to an amber warning, or the first amber warning was received on Wednesday, the 22nd of January. We activated the severe weather plan, and we had our first multi-agency meeting, which was with the Local Resilience Forum on Thursday the 23rd, and we had our first internal assessment meeting held the same day. So we stood up on Thursday. We obviously were exchanging correspondence with email before that. Briefing was sent to the County Emergency Committee on the evening of Thursday, and the community response hubs were contacted on the morning of Friday, and were followed up by 2 other emails. So those structures that we now have in place in those plans stood up smoothly and worked very well for the duration of the incident. So from Storm Arwen to now, we have definitely made improvements, and there's clear water between how we responded for Storm Arwen and how we responded for this storm. Internally, the plans that we had were used and really helped, and we were also very supportive in how we responded. The response was coordinated virtually. We were able to do that. What I would say from the Northern Power Grid perspective is that we got data from them in an agreed format, which meant that colleagues internally were able to process that data promptly, and we were able to work with our social care colleagues so that they could actually check on vulnerable clients. And one of the outcomes of that data being shared and MPG improving their procedures was actually we weren't inundated with calls from members of the public as a local authority, which is what we saw in Storm Arwen. MPG's comms failed, and we became the conduit for a lot of calls for help from our communities. It didn't happen with this for MPG's customers. On the point about social care colleagues, they were doing most of their form by phone. If they couldn't contact their clients, they actually passed those names on to our fire service colleagues who went out and did face-to-face checks. And the value was really demonstrated when one of the fire service colleagues called back and said that they had come across an elderly gentleman who had been released from hospital and was at home. He was being looked after by his son, but he was at home in the dark. He didn't want to leave his farm because of the livestock. He had no power. We shared that information with MPG, and I think within about an hour they were up there and they provided support for that gentleman. They've got a battery generator in place for him, so he was being looked after. So that internal multi-sector working, but also that sharing of information with our external agency also helped. We stood a data team up over the weekend as well, so they were actually able to use some different data sources that we have around levels of vulnerability within our community. So we're going to be learning the lesson from that, because that proved to be really helpful for visualising where some of the clusters were and where we might have had to prioritise our resources if we needed to go out and provide more support to the communities. And the community response hubs were proactively contacted for updates about their status. And one of the points I would make at this point was that some did choose to open, but some also made the decision to not open, which might seem counterintuitive, but actually they felt empowered enough to make that decision by themselves. They decided their community didn't need that help. So I take that as a positive as well, not just that they chose to open. So as with all of these things, there's always areas for improvement. We like to learn lessons. We are a learning organisation. One of the things that we found was that our colleagues in Scottish Power Energy Networks were sharing data that wasn't in the same format as MPG, Northern Power Grid, and it was difficult to work with. It was harder to work with because of the format that was shared with us. And feedback from residents who were living in that SPEN area was that information was poor, difficult to find, and it wasn't clear what their compensation packages were. So or how they could be accessed. So there's definitely some work to be done with Scottish Power Energy Networks. And some of those properties were off for 5 days after the storm had hit, whereas most of Northern Power Grid properties were back on sooner than that. We've learned that the out of hours data requirement capacity needs to be clarified and developed further, so we've got some work to look at that. Contacts with community hubs could have been made earlier, so we could have started talking to them on the Thursday, say, rather than the Friday, and that would have reduced the risk of communication outages due to power cuts within those areas as well. So while we did do that, we maybe could have done it sooner but we're learning from that. We also need to be clear why it's good for community response hubs to tell us they've opened. Because actually, if we'd been clearer about that and clearer about the support that Northern Power Grid would have then been able to lever for them, we probably would have got more proactive messaging back. So we just need to clear that two-way communication a little bit more. We need to develop the network of community response hubs. I think that will be in every debrief that I bring back about community response, because we always need to develop the community response hubs, because working with our communities is a good thing. And wider operational support roles within Northumberland County Council, which could be developed further and recruited for, such as some admin support or data support. And we've actually got a paper going to the executive management team next week on that very subject. So I hope I haven't taken too long on that, Chair.
No, that's perfect. It's been very thorough. Thank you very much. I'll just make a couple of points and then we'll sort of open up to questions. I mean, as I said in the pre-meeting, I think I don't like storms with names in, because I first came across the council during Storm Desmond when my house was 6 feet underwater, and the fire brigade and the Environment Agency knocked on my door in the morning and said, you're going to flood, and we didn't believe them. We stayed in the house and we flooded. But the council response and the fire brigade response and the Environment Agency response was absolutely tremendous. So the fact that it seems to have moved on since then must mean it's excellent. And the other point you made about the experience of Northern Power Grid as well was something in my ward I've experienced in the last storm, where residents actually felt that the communications were much better. The information on the website was A, available, and B, accurate. And so they felt confident to make decisions about whether to stay in their houses or go and stay with family and things like that. So a much improved situation. And then the third point around community response is, I think we as councillors can all probably play our part in that, in encouraging our communities to build that resilience, whether it be a generator in a town and parish hall or just having local wardens or whatever it is. There are things we can do. So that's great. So questions, Eileen?
I haven't got a question. I just want to make a point as well on what Nick said. I can't remember which storm it was, but I thought what was really useful was, as a councillor, I had a direct contact so I could get a hold of somebody straight away and ask for help. Don't know which one it was. I know we got an email and I was able to get help for quite a few of my residents that needed it. The one thing that I would suggest is perhaps make it more noticeable for the members of the community that have to get their own sandbags, because people were ringing us up asking us for sandbags, and I think people don't know, and that's the only thing. Other than that, I thought the help I got was brilliant.
Anne?
Thank you very much, Helen. I wasn't here for the last storm, but I did see it going on where it was nice and hot and sunny. Can I just say, to start with, would it be helpful, I think it would help me, if we could have a plan about how you are contacting residents? And first of all, before you get there, how are you going to contact councillors? Because we don't have, and ages ago I did ask them and say, could you please write to the board and ask how you can contact us? I can't be contacted by email if it goes down, because I'm not in the area. I've only got a landline. The landline went down, so that was down for 3 weeks. So all this, but we need to know, and you need to know as well, how you're going to contact us and what's the best way. You could say you have to drive, there's all kinds of ways, but you need to know how you can contact us if you need our help, whatever, or giving us information, because the email systems just don't work sometimes. So there's all kinds of things like, so it's an information thing going down. I don't know, I happen to know because I'm on the parish council, which community there are in the wards in my area. I happen to know that one is not run by the parish council, but by other people. The shared ones, there's all kinds of things, but also this difference between a warm hub, a warm space, a community response hub. And there needs to be some clarity, because we seem to have, and I think I brought this up when we was in Hexham and everybody agreed, that the majority of the warm hubs are actually owned by the local people. They're not owned by the county council. And this are, community hubs. Now, some of them are, they're not. And actually, we need to distinguish that the communities are the people who really run those hubs, and you are a backup. But they need to know. But the other thing is, I did speak to one and said, how are you going to tell everybody you are the community response hub? Oh, so we need to get these community response hubs also to inform the community that they are the community response hub. They might not be the walk space or the whatever you want to call it, but they are the community response hub, and they're the people who will take the decision whether they're relating or not. That makes sense.
Yes.
Because, you know, in big areas, you'll have all kinds of community things, but nobody knows because there doesn't seem to have been a directive going out. So we really need a plan, a framework about how it's got to start from the top, where you've got gold or wherever you've got it, how it goes through the whole system to the actual basics where the real help is needed, which is on the ground. So if we could have that plan, that would really, no, I can do one. You know, if you want to get easy mode, have a really good one. But it just shows you how it comes down, because in the end, that's where you want to go to.
So several things in there, Councillor. I think the first around comms. You've reminded me that we're currently working with our comms team on a comms plan. The comms team are writing an emergency comms plan. So that's something that we're working, because that's their area of responsibility. So we will work with them to make sure it dovetails with our emergency response plan. The other around the different types of buildings, the different names for the same building, I completely agree with you. We are just in the process of writing a brand new plan, which is called, and you're going to love this because it's a different name, it's an emergency assistance centre plan. And within that, there will be definitions of the different types of centres and buildings, for everything from the warm hubs, warm spaces, community response hubs, rest centres, and various other types of centres that we might get involved in, because there's lots of them, and I know the terminology is confusing. I work with this day in, day out, so it's for me, even for me, I had to write it all down in a list because I was kind of losing what was what. So that plan is currently under development. Consultation copy for that should be hopefully available at the end of this week. It'll be circulated internally first for consultation because it's brand new. So there might be some rough edges that will need to be taken. The point about the community buildings, you're absolutely right. They are not owned by us, and the definition that I use for them is very much they are community buildings run by the community, opened by the community. Community do not have to ask us permission to do anything within those buildings. They're not ours. We might contact them and say, please, can we have your building for a particular incident? Yes. Then that's a different scenario entirely to what we're talking about for this one. If you want to know where the nominated buildings are within your ward, just I can send you that list. That's
I happen to know only because I've just but they're different people differently.
Yeah,
I've actually been. I mean, to be quite honest, I have seen the report of reform because it was sent to me. I couldn't understand how long it took to complete what I would call a straightforward plan. But I'm being honest, I mean, you know,
the community plan.
This is the one you went through.
Yes.
And the amount of time it took was ages. And I just have to, I mean, I'm quite happy to go through, but it just seemed, I couldn't believe the amount of time. I wasn't involved in it, but I did know I had complaints about the time. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely great you're actually making headway and you don't know what's going to come down the road next. And that's always been my concern, that we're responding for the last emergency when we don't know when the next one's going to be. And therefore we need action. So if I said so, we haven't had a plan for, I don't know, 8 years or whatever, I have no idea. But we need to have a plan that's updated every year with all the, I mean, we had our Tyndale plan updated every year with all the contact details for all the community hubs, the new response hubs and who everybody was. And not bothered about, sounds awful, what goes on gold, silver, what's wrong, that's your problem, that's your, it's actually feeding down to the people.
So the Northumberland Incident Response Plan is available publicly. It exists, it's existed for the last 2 years. It's available, I can send you a copy. And that's Northumberland wide, and it includes it does include how we will work with the community as well. We're refining other plans that will support that one.
I think what I'm trying to say is that we need to address these things more with the actual parish councils or town councils, so they recognise what is available. So, you know, you could send to all parish councils or town councils, this is the plan. Please keep it, because this is how we interact. And next year, you know, you can update it whenever. And it should have all the details, contact details of people and everything else, which should be updated every year. Councillors can be updated every year, as you said.
Can I suggest therefore that if Helen circulates that plan to members of the committee, I mean, we've all got access to it anyway, I think it's, but
Yeah,
It's too much there.
but if you could circulate it, and then we'll have a and because I think there's got to be a discussion and a cut-off point at some place between what communities do locally.
Yeah.
And what the council, because the council can't be expected, if there's a county-wide storm, to be on the ground in every single community, dealing with every single issue, and the, you know, town and parish councils, other community groups, sports clubs, whatever, will have to get involved, and I'm not sure it's practical or realistic for the county council to have a sort of thorough and complete database of all of that stuff. And it's probably beholden on us as local councillors to actually work with the town and parish councils in our areas to kind of develop those plans and hold them locally, so that local people, because what we get to is to communicate.
Absolutely, I think, can I take that?
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's what I was trying to say. But the thing is, the county council does need contact details.
Yes.
Of that, and that is
Yes.
important. The other small thing is that how many of these community hubs have actually got generators?
that's a mixed picture.
And we've got one that's nice, and they've got some, but that is another big thing. So you can open them up, but if you can't, they might have gas, but they might not. But if they don't have electricity, and they don't have generators, you know, they're not actually, you can't really call them, you know, a community response hub.
It depends what they're responding to.
Absolutely.
You know, they might be responding to a severe weather event that hasn't knocked the power out.
Yeah.
You know, we can't assume that every
No.
incident will be about power outage. And the other thing that we do with our communities is we will go and work with them to help them write the plan. So they make the plan appropriate to the community, rather than us saying, here's a plan, but that might not work. So I would agree with the chair's comment about we will help as much as we can, but actually the ownership has to be at that local level, because they know the communities.
Can I just say, because there's discussion, can I just say, maybe we've got a form about what those community response hubs responsibilities are. Basically, I'm saying, you know, responsibilities are starting at the top, please. And basically, it should be on the parish council board or on the website or whatever. This is your community response hub.
We've got to do more to see
It's
which
got to be
buildings are
more,
community responsible.
I'd like the board to be more proactive about within the community.
A comment on that, Chair. I think that's up to the community.
Yes, give them the
But
format.
I mean, I don't think we should be giving them the format, because what we're giving them the format for, is it a snow event, is it a wind event, is it an electric event? I think the communities need to work out what level they're comfortable in, and let them do the role. That's the way I view it and the way it's worked in the Muller ward. And you know, supplying the information to each parish council. I've got a number of parish councils that don't want anything to do with it, and it's a community group that steps up.
I think that's where the community people are the ones who say we
And
are
I
the
think that's
community.
our rule to do that. They're not expecting officers to then
Oh, I'm
provide.
not expecting. What I'm saying, if you do a format, which you think you're the community, would you please ensure that the community know that you are, and whatever, and even the contact details, whatever, put it on. It's up for them to actually take it forward.
Well, I think the starting point is to circulate that incident
Yeah.
plan, and then we can take it from there. Thank you. Nick.
Thank you. Sounds like we did a great job in that storm there, and it's fantastic to see how far we've come since Storm Owen. And it's also great that you've identified areas for improvement as well. So you're not resting on your laurels. I just have two questions about data. It's something that we identified that was important during the Storm Owen review. So one is about you mentioned that a data team was stood up. There was 3 years ago, and you said they had access to other data sets. I was wondering if you could just tell us which data set and like what they did with them.
So they had access to lift and assisted bins are the two. Assisted bin collections are the two that come to mind, and they cross-referenced those again the data that have been shared with by NPG. So the data that comes from Northern Power will also the priority service registered users are. So we could cross-reference that. And the idea for that was our adult social care teams are already looking at people who are in receipt of support from the local authority. So they're probably arguably the most vulnerable. But when you start moving into that longer time period, as we realised in Storm Arwen, people start to tip into vulnerability. So we used that data to look at, and they clustered it so we could see where there might be pockets of support that was needed. One of the lessons we learned with that was it took quite a long time. So by the time the mapping was ready, we'd got a new data set from NPG, which meant that actually those clusters had reduced. So we were looking at, so I was looking at it retrospectively, but what that brought to my mind was if we could step that up as a routine part of our response, actually it might have then gone, we need to direct Northern Power Grid more proactively towards X part of the county or Y part of the county. So it was a really valuable thing to do. And I think that's going to be one of the conversations that we're going to be having with colleagues at EMT about how do we get that built into our response as a standard part of the response.
Great. Can you remind me what LIFT is?
No.
It's low income family tracker. So the fire service use that as well, so that we actually use this quite proactively before any kind of emergency situation develops. So we will go out using the LIFT data to identify the inequalities in the communities, and we give a service from the community safety team that in the county council and within the fire and rescue service. So it gives us a good picture before the event happens. Firefighters, community responders on the ground know where the vulnerable parts of the communities are. So that's even making the preparedness more robust, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So you had data from manual social care, you had data from non-family, then you got data from LIFT and assisted bins, and you identified a few more vulnerable people
who would potentially be.
I just had another question about data relating to a comment, a line in the areas for improvement slide. It says the out of hours data requirement and capacity needs to be clarified and developed further. So what exactly is it that we need to clarify and develop further?
We need data people available out of hours, so who can actually crunch the numbers.
Right, okay. So,
or we need to build tools that can be used by somebody like me who is not a data expert.
Yeah.
So one of the two.
Right, so that makes sense. So during hours you have data people crunching data, out of hours is a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Jeff.
Looks Daniel, I think.
Oh, was it Dan?
Yeah, unless you want.
No. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, really good service, I think, on the response that you guys have done in the fire service. But one of the questions I wanted to ask about was the residents in the rural areas that you identified who needed to have a physical checkup on. I think there was one gentleman you said was in his 90s. When you visit them, is there any encouragement from the councils to ensure that the communication methods are there for them? Because one of my biggest concerns is for the elderly residents who don't have the internet, or if the power goes out on the local landline, do they have their own mobile phones? And if not, are they being encouraged to get access to them? And also, do we have the family communications, like young sons and grandchildren? And the other question was regarding the areas for improvement. With Scottish Power and Northern Power Grids format data not being the same, are we encouraging them to format the data the same? I know how difficult it can be to get data from different departments, and it doesn't match up. It's always.
So the elderly gentleman who we were able to assist actually did have a mobile phone, but one of the problems was the power kept running out of his mobile phone. So his son was taking his phone away, charging it, bringing it back, and that was one of the reasons why Northern Power Grid provided him with some portable. I think it was must have been a battery or like a large battery or something like a battery generator, and we're part of the programme for the community resilience forums that we've been running. Part of that programme includes information about the digital switchover and what help customers can get from the companies who are doing the digital switchover, and the fact that if they are vulnerable, they should be getting battery backups and assistance like that. So we are trying to address that, but you are right, it is problematic when landlines and some of our residents might not realise the implications of that, but we're trying to fill that through comms. Question about data. Yes, there's a meeting in the diary with our Scottish counterpart and the Scottish Marriage Network at the end of next month, where some of this will, I'm sure, will be discussed, because it needs to be resolved.
Thank you, Chair. Great, thank you. I think Jeff was next, and then Mark, and then Brian.
Thanks. Just wanted to thank you for all the work you've done since when we had we had a big discussion here. We came up with all those recommendations. You've got them all in place and you built the structure that can cope. So well done. The only kind of hole that I've seen in this and what everybody else has said is this Scottish Power thing.
Yes.
How many properties are we actually talking about? Is it?
Properties, I don't know, but it's Northumberland, so it's Holy Island. It's about Haggerton Castle, I think, is where the cut-off is, north.
Yeah, and it comes right across to the A697, just 5 mile north of Wooler. So it's actually quite a spade of rural area.
That includes Berwick and.
Yes. Yeah.
So then it is quite important to us, but I just wonder how important it is to Scottish Power.
I think that's an excellent way of framing the question. It's important to us. Our residents pay their bills to us at the end of the day.
There are discussions with the border councils as well, so they've got concerns.
I think they've got concerns. I haven't had any direct conversation with my Scottish counterparts, but I've received some emails which indicate that they were also not happy with the level of response. So we've got work to do with them. We have got work to do with them. We identified it in Storm Arwen and it's played out again in Storm Arwen. It's really is a gap.
So I would certainly wouldn't criticise any of the people working for us who've done a great job, and Northern Power Grid appear to have pitched in. So we just need to put the pressure on, and if it's a whole Scottish Power thing, then that needs to be tackled. But I just hope that it's just not the English bit of Scottish Power.
No.
It seems to think they don't have to live up to the responsibilities. But other than that, well done, great keystone.
I think what I would say about the Scottish Power Energy Network side of things is they sent us data, which they didn't do in Storm Arwen. So, there is, for all that I'm complaining, the data did come in the wrong format and was hard to deal with.
Well, sorry, Chair, that would be even more frustrating if somebody sent you a file and you can't open it.
Well,
I mean, that's worse than not getting it, I would have thought.
I think, and I don't know, Northern Power Energy Networks were just slicker in the way that they did it, and they've taken on board feedback from us about how we want to receive the data. Scottish Power Energy Network shared the data, but it was much harder to work with.
Yeah, I think, well, it's encouraging to hear. It doesn't sound like we've got a two-tier system where English customers are being penalised.
They're sharing it in the same format with everyone.
I suppose the thing is, if you don't have any joy, if your meetings don't lead to any progress, and you need a bit of political pressure, I'm sure whoever is the administration when that comes will help with that and do a bit of lobbying. But I think Mark was next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I think it's a positive report. I read it as very much a positive report, especially how you identify your own areas of improvement, which is great. I definitely felt through this storm that Team NCC were prepared and responded throughout the storm, and even to the end where retain stations were opening up, offering showers. It just shows Team NCC are there for the communities. Working alongside my resilience hubs, felt empowered now because of the training that you've been given over the last, since Storm Arwen, and we had meetings twice a day and made the decision not to open because we felt we were happy. And I think that it's great that those hubs feel empowered to do their own resilience and share information. I suppose that what's been discussed about Scottish Power just simply was not good enough. Scottish Power came to the Arwen review and said that they'd forgot the supplied power to England. So it's a pretty low bar that they've started from. And to be honest with you, they haven't really climbed much in my estimations. I spent a lot of time speaking to their staff who were excellent, but were scrambling within themselves to respond. I remember one comment that I said, why haven't you supplied hot food? Because the nearest hot food was, I think, 50 miles away. And they said, oh, because the roads were bad, we couldn't get the catering van to Berwick. That's great. There's a catering van in Berwick, is there? You know, so that they just haven't learned anything what Northern Power Grid have learned from the Arwen review. So I hope that we are going to be very strong on them. And I think Northern Power Grid's come a long way, but they just need to ensure flexibility on cases. The idea of a bit of an easy fix that will pay for accommodation, not going in individual cases, but paying for somebody to leave the home isn't always the right thing, especially with somebody with dementia, or, you know, their home's there, they understand their safe space. And just as long as Northern Power Grid are still understanding that we can't just get out by handing blank checks out for accommodation, some people do still need kept in the home, whether it's for medical advice or capacity. And I just wonder that this storm reacted differently in the Woolwich ward, certainly because the comms were still working. And we still haven't been able to persuade mobile phone masts to ensure that they have power backup. Is there something this committee could do is put a recommendation to the leader or cabinet to just write again to central government pushing for this, because I think that it definitely changes the dynamic and our ability to respond between the community and the county. It was like night and day to Arwen.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can adopt that, and the deputy leader's over there, so he's given us the thumbs up, so we'll organise that. Yeah, thank you. Great. Is there anything you want to respond to on that? But I mean, all the points well made. Thank you.
I think Brian picked up some very good points here by the members today, good discussion points. And I think one of the high priorities will be, as you've just mentioned, to
mobile
action. But like I say, the communities out there, you really need to get this sorted, because we will be getting more extreme weather conditions. And that's what we're talking about today rather than anything else.
Yeah.
And each community is different. Yeah. And they are the focal points. Don't leave it at the county council.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, again, I echo my colleague. You've done a fantastic job. It's not a black and white policy. It's something that's going to have to be worked on as the years come on. My concerns is, I think Anne brought it up about the review of should it be a 12 months or 6 months? And I remember having a conversation within scrutiny. Should it be 6 or 12 months for the updates of your community or your resilience hubs? I'd be very mindful of when you're going to do that review, because you don't want to be doing it in the middle of November, December. So you really want to get a fixed date that's in September, October, and then you're ready and prepared. And those people that are still alive within the system are involved with it. And the people that have dropped off, you're aware of it and you know where your funds are. So thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, I think that's been a really good presentation. Thanks, guys. You no need to stay. You're very welcome to if you'd like to, but no, that's been really good and really useful. Thank you. Yes. Yes, two action points: circulate the plan and the leader will write a letter. Yeah. Yes, actually, there was one other thing we talked about in the pre-meeting, which was to include some training for new councillors as part of the induction programme. Yeah. So we can make a recommendation about that. We'll make a recommendation about including some training for new councillors after May as part of the induction programme. Yeah, thank you. Great. So the second presentation is about the North East Transport Plan. And we've got Richard and Stuart, but we've also got Rochelle from the North East Combined Authority. So it's great that you've taken the time to come and talk to us, Rochelle. Thank you. But I'll pass over to Richard to introduce this.
Thank you. Quite a long discussion already. I won't do anything other than say over to you, Stuart, and be doing the presentation
Okay,
more generally, because I think we've got a presentation.
thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Chair. First, can I introduce you to Rochelle Forsyth-Ward, who's the Head of Strategic Transport and Policy at the Combined Authority. So obviously the Combined Authority, as the local transport authority, now hold the pen on the local transport plan. So this has been a long time in the making, significant consultation process prior to Christmas, and we're almost betwixt and between just now, and that the consultation process is now complete. But the final draft of the plan will go in front of the Mayor and the Cabinet on March the 11th.
It's changed, it's March 18th.
March the 18th, but next month in March
Yeah.
for final approval of the local transport plan. So Rochelle, as I'm not going to take any of the glory because it's been Rochelle's and her team's hard work, so allow Rochelle to talk through the plan. There is within the presentation is a slide that gives a bit of the Northumberland context that I can chip in and give some of the Northumberland overview. I'll hand over to Rochelle.
Right.
Slides ready to
Thank you very much.
Stuart, can I just have the slides on the screen, please? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Great. So the North East Local Transport Plan is a statutory plan. We are required to produce one for the region, and it's been developed in line with government guidance. In this local transport plan, sets out in strategic terms what the Mayor aspires to achieve through transport provision and why she aspires to achieve that. It's accompanied by a delivery plan, and it's a delivery plan that's got the list of transport schemes, and that sets out what we will build, what we'll introduce or change to achieve the aim of the local transport plan. And it covers a 15-year period, so it's looking right ahead to 2040. And I mentioned it's got an aim, and that aim is to create a green integrated transport network that works for all. And the plan covers the movement of both people and freight right across the whole of the North East. And we've got a message that making journeys is good. We want people to travel around. That's because it benefits the economy. However, greener journeys are even better because they benefit people's health and the environment. And we've created this decision tree, which you can see on the screen there, which just asks people to think through their journey choices. So it starts with, I need to make a journey today. Is it possible to walk, or cycle? If not, is public transport an option? And if that's not an option, and we do recognise for some journeys, they will always need to be made by car or van, then we just say, could you combine that journey with park and ride? Could you use a car club? Could you use a taxi? Or if you do need to make the entire journey by car or van, is it possible to use an electric vehicle? Okay. So transport is an enabler to delivering the combined authority's missions. So there's 5 missions. First one is home of real opportunity. Second is a North East we are proud to call home. Then we've got home to a growing and vibrant economy for all. Then we've got home of the green energy revolution. And finally, we've got a welcoming home to global trade. And we believe there are 3 cross-cutting themes for transport that help to underpin the delivery of those combined authority missions. You can see them at the bottom of that flow chart there. So first one, more inclusive economy. This is about how the local transport plan will help to attract investment, how it will boost job creation, and how it will enable access to opportunity across the region. Then we've got a better environment. So this is about helping to protect our environment and tackle climate change by providing an attractive, sustainable transport network for both people and freight. And then we've got a healthier North East. So this one's about achieving better health outcomes by encouraging active and sustainable travel and by making sure we've got better transport connections to healthcare provision as well. Okay, so now I just want to focus a bit on where we want to be by 2040. So as I've said, we've got an aim to create an integrated transport network that works for all.
And in the local transport plan, we've got a third set of service standards for an improved integrated transport network. The standards are ambitious and they're focused around five key focus areas. You can see the 5 areas on the screen there. So first one is planning journeys, informing users and supporting customers. So we want to be in a position where information for the entire door-to-door journey is easy to find, simple to understand, and accessible for everybody. Then for ticket and fares, we want ticket and fares to be simple. We want them to be affordable. Again, we want them to be easily understood. And we want to make sure that people don't have to buy multiple tickets for journeys across the North East. Then we've got reach and resilience of infrastructure. So this is about making sure that the transport network extends to all areas of the North East, including our remote rural areas. And we want to make sure it's able to cope with extreme weather instances, such as flash flooding. Next, we've got safety, especially of women and girls and other vulnerable groups. And we want everyone to feel safe when travelling around the region. But if people do have concerns, we want them to be able to report those easily and have the confidence that they will be dealt with. And then we've got connections between different transport types. So this one's about creating that joined up integrated network where you can get off one form of transport and onto another without having a lengthy wait in between. So the local transport plan sets out the overarching vision. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a delivery plan that's detailing interventions and actions that we can deliver. And we will be working with our partners to deliver these and achieve the vision of the transport plan. The pipeline of schemes in the delivery plan is developed in collaboration with our partners, and that includes all 7 local authorities. And it doesn't just include capital interventions in there, it also considers new methods of delivery, powers and policies, including the powers that are now made available to the Mayor and the Combined Authority through the devolution deal. And it's looking right far ahead, it's looking right up to 2040, but it's grouped into 3 time periods. So it's up to 2027, then we've got 2028 to 2032, then we've got 2033 up to 2040. And then the most important thing I want to pull out is that the delivery plan is a live document. That means it allows us to update and report on delivery as we move through. Schemes can be added to it as they're identified and new funding sources are found.
Thanks, Michelle. So within the delivery plan, it's something we've all been reached to I'm school representative both in the plan and itself within the delivery plan and recognise that it's not a one size fits all. The combined authority area. It's not an urban area, it's unique in the combined authorities across the country, but it's got a real urban-rural split. So it's important to recognise that both within the policies that are developed and within the schemes within the delivery plan. And it was really pleasing, I think, from the slides that Michelle has become, is that through the consultation process, we got real buy-in, we got real input from the Northumberland residents in terms of, I think as is often the case with these things, it tends to be quite an urban focused response, but across the piece, per head of population, Northumberland residents and businesses fully reflected in the consultation process. So that's really positive. We recognise that there will be tailored solutions that address the specific challenges faced by communities within Northumberland. And within the delivery plan, we would look to build on would be what we've already delivered or are delivering through the bus service improvement plan by improving bus services to better link up communities in terms of both the frequency of service, but also early morning, evening services, for example, connecting into other public transport services. So things like that look to continue within the delivery plan. We're also looking to investigate how we can invest in improved integration, be that demand responsive transport, be it car clubs, be it community-led transport schemes. There are a lot of opportunities out there. Some work better than others, but we feel we've got a good understanding of what can work in there and looking to roll those out, particularly within the rural areas. Also ensuring, aligning to one of the key priorities in terms of that green integrated transport network. I've already mentioned the bus connectivity we're looking to introduce, but also in terms of improved rail connectivity as an alternative mode of transport, be that phase 2 of the Northumberland line, or be it better connectivity along the East Coast Main Line, along the Tyne Valley line, in terms of improved rail services for the communities, either for those people who don't have access to a car, or to encourage people out of their car to make alternative journeys by sustainable mode. But we also recognise, particularly within Northumberland, that for some people the car is the only viable opportunity for people to make those journeys. So, within the car, it is reflected, as a last resort in some cases, but there are areas where it is absolutely vital. So that comes in 3 areas largely. Initially, improvements to the local road network, be it Blythe Relief Road or other local highway improvement schemes, where we'd be the delivery agent. It's a more strategic nature, where we're not the delivery agent, we will have a strong lobbying power to ensure that national highways deliver the A1 dualling or Moor Farm Roundabout, for example. That's a key importance to us. But also, forget this, but it's equally vital in terms of the maintenance of the existing road network, in terms of ensuring that the connectivity is retained, and the impact of having unmaintained roads, the structures along the network. Gateshead is the prime example prior to Christmas with the flyover. The wider impact of a poorly maintained network can be critical to the growth of the region. So that's something that we can't forget, so that the maintenance funding is fully recognised within there. So, within the delivery plan, I think all our priorities are within there, taking the feedback from the consultation process, added some additional schemes within there, but we feel that in the coming months and years, should the mayor's funding start on those priorities.
Thank you. Okay, so Stuart mentioned that we've been out of consultation. That was a very extensive consultation which ran for 12 weeks. It started on the 4th of November and it ran right up until midnight on the 26th of January. We had a steer from the mayor that the consultation needed to be far-reaching. We wanted to hear from as many people as we possibly could. So we made sure we made a big effort to shout about the consultation and make sure that everybody had an opportunity to take part. We received over 16,000 responses to that consultation. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there, a lot of the responses were in support of the local transport plan, with 81% of respondents stating that they strongly agree or agree with the ambition of the plan. So that was really positive to see. And then I just want to focus on timescales and next steps. So as you mentioned, that we've been digesting all of that feedback, and obviously there's been quite a lot of it to digest. And we've been reflecting on it and amending the local transport plan and implementing documents as appropriate. They are going to the mayor and the portfolio holder for transport, who's Councillor Gannon, for finalisation. Once they're happy with them, we will then take them along to March Cabinet, which is taking place on the 18th of March, where we will ask the Combined Authority Cabinet to agree to publish those documents. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. That was very interesting. So Daniel, and then Anne, and then Jeff, then Nick.
So this is all. I think this is a great presentation. It really, it kind of reminds me of when the internet first came about in the 90s. When talking about the connectivity, and it's great that coming into 2025, we're talking about like in a region, the connection of all people being able to get around it. It's fantastic. But there's just one or two points I just want to raise, Chair. The first one, I'm glad you put on, in the very start of the slide about encouraging the residents of Northumberland, for the rail transport, that being the first one. And the fact that we've got the Northumberland line, is, improving the connectivity already. And, as soon as we get Blythe open on both stations, website and using my can't wait. The statistics are showing that we're going to need 2 extra coaches for that once they open next month. And I'm really pleased the council and the administration have got that going. However, the one concern I've got is for residents in Blythe and in the rural areas particularly as well, is the getting to the stations. Now, we're talking about people using the train first and then going on to then be using the buses. So tell me now tell members if this has already been in the works, but when you mentioned the bus reform, will we be looking at shuttle buses to get the residents from one side of Blythe who maybe don't want to drive or it's too far for them to walk or because they're elderly? Obviously, yes, they can get public transport, a Riva bus or a taxi, or friend can drive them and drop them off, and we've got the huge car parking spaces available for them. Will we be providing some sort of shuttle bus to get the people from one end of Blythe to the stations? If the bus isn't, if we can't transport service, and in the rural areas as well, will that apply to getting into some of the stations?
Can I just make a point? That's a very general point about the new Northumberland line. Obviously, it applies to all stations, but just for members generally, if we can avoid asking specific questions about ward-only problems. I think Dan's point is not really a ward-only problem. It's a specific issue about connecting other forms of transport, multimodal transport, to railway lines in general.
And I think, Chair, that's effectively what the strategy is driving at to a large part anyway, and something that's going to happen, Councillor Carr. So, because people's habits will change, the train, using the South East Northumberland example, being slightly less focused and just Newsham or website, but it's the same for Ashington, it's the same for other places as well. That people are going to change their habits, and the bus routes need to change and adapt to reflect that, and that would be the case regardless of the franchising approach or whatever approach we take. We would be looking to optimise that, to watch the usage figures and try and cajole and persuade the bus companies if that's what was necessary to link in that way. And it'll be to their benefit because there'll be a fare that will allow them to do that. What would be really good, and we've had there's a question at full council before, was having it would be an Oyster card now, it's just a factory credit card if you're in one of the major cities across the globe or in the rest of the country. That's what we need to get to make it as seamless and easy as possible. And it's not without its challenges, it takes a bit of doing, but that's where we're headed. Stuart might like to add something on that.
So the plan as a whole, at a strategic level, that is absolutely the principle we're going to try and achieve in terms of, that connectivity between cycle, rail, bus, rail, across modes, through ticketing also. But specifically to the Northumberland line, we're already starting to deliver the 434 service, which we've put through BSIP, which connects Widrington to Ashington Station to Burlington Station. That's already in operation when Newsham Station opens next month. I'm trying to remember the service it is. We've got agreement from Arriva that one or two of their services will connect directly to Newsham Station. It's a start, it's not the end. We'd like them to do some more, but as a commercial operator, that's not so easy. But we've made a start, and hopefully that'll demonstrate that it's not taking passengers off bus onto rail, it's increasing the public transport offer overall. So hopefully that'll be demonstrated when we introduce that. And also already done through the Northumberland line is make it pop card applicable, so people have their pop card within Tyne and Wear to tap in and tap out of the Tyne and Wear metro rather than additional onto the zonal map for across Tyne and Wear. So Ashington is now in Zone D, Zone 4, Zone D. So you can tap in at Ashington, ultimately get off at Central Station and connect onto the metro to go elsewhere, all within the same tap in, tap out, and it'll be capped at a fair level that is really competitive. So that's something that is working really successfully, and I would imagine the Mayor, that's the kind of thing she would look to roll out across the region.
That sounds great. As long as the bus services are on board, brilliant.
Great, yeah. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Anne,
Yeah, I just said as long as you remember to tap out, otherwise it's expensive. Can I just ask you, obviously the rural areas and actually getting to the bus line, the train lines. I think we all had in each area, we had somebody who was representing each area for the LT thing to go in and report back. And I know we had, I think John Riddle was
John
asked.
Riddle's our Tynedale one.
And I just wanted to know how that was fed in to the consultation, because that's very important that the rural areas, we have these area people. And I presume I've never seen what was fed in from our area committee. Maybe we could ask for that, Nick, to see what we in the Tynedale area and where I don't know what up in the north, they were different from obviously Blythe and Cramlington. So it would be interesting, more interesting to see what the rural areas had to say and how that's going to be addressed. Because that's very important, because a lot of the time you need your car or your van.
So we've just recently, through the bus service improvement plan, got additional funding, additional resource to strengthen the team. So now we have bus ambassador and a bus engagement officer now part of the team who very soon are going to start to have more regular discussions with the town and parish councils to understand their local needs and how we can best utilise that bus service improvement plan funding going forward. We have allocated some of that funding based on our officers' knowledge of the network, based on clear gaps in the network, but going forward we'll start to engage more closely with the town and parish councillors using those bus engagement officers to understand better. And the bus partnership board will be meeting again very soon.
And that will feed in, I presume, into the regional, the North East Assembly plan.
Yes, and just to be aware, but it's a long process.
Oh yes, I just think I wanted to know where we are.
Oh yes, Councillor, you're quite correct.
The bus service improvement plan funding is the here and now funding that we can utilise using those forums, but then also for the longer term stuff, we'll continue to engage through those routes.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, police officers, but in terms of the working on the bus strategy and so on and so forth, it goes on into 2028 or so, doesn't it, in terms of coming to conclusion or franchising and so on and so forth. So this is a long bus route ahead of us.
So the bus reform working group or the bus reform work stream is so that the mayor, when was it back prior to Christmas, got cabinet authority to go forward looking at bus franchising, which is taking mayoral control of the bus network. That franchise scheme assessment process has just started, which is effectively the business case to make the case for bus franchising or another form of bus reform, and that is due to report this time next year. But that report will go to cabinet to say to the mayor and the cabinet to say we've done this work. We believe that there is a business case, or otherwise for bus franchising or that type of bus reform. And then beyond that, there'll probably be, a couple of years before that's implemented. It's a huge
as long as people in the rural areas know that they're having an input, because that's important. Because they're short.
And again, we've recognised that through the bus reform process.
I think that's why I want to see that, yeah.
Northumberland, Durham and Nexus all have specific knowledge to offer that process, but also specific needs that we need to be sure are reflected in that process. So we're working very closely.
And just to add, I think Councillor Sanderson and myself have emphasised that as that process goes on, that there must be no pressure that falls on rural bus services in terms of loss there to make up for additional services elsewhere. Bus services in the rural areas are incredibly important to us. We want to see them improved, not eroded.
So the current bus mileage within our Northumberland is very much our baseline, yes, above which we wish to go, and that's the bottom line.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I've got to be very rude, but I've got to go and take a dog to a vet.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. No, thank you for coming. And yeah, I hope the dog's okay. Yes. Yeah. Jeff, and then Nick and Nick. And then.
Well,
and then you.
Shall we, Chair? What I didn't understand was the consultation thing. I don't know what the population is.
It's Office of National Statistics population. So that's basically saying that's 16%
absolutely fine
versus 15%.
I didn't know what that was.
Slightly underrepresented. We need to get back on the
And,
computer and
and
fire emails off.
so what really on the rest of that page, public consultation is always a nightmare.
Yeah.
There are over 1.5 million people that could have responded to this survey. Might even be 2 million people that have responded to this survey. Then 16,000. I mean, it's nearly as bad as our budget consultation process. So
Every cloud, come on.
hey, it's my cloud. So I don't disagree with it, but it's just, you've just always just got to be careful. When there's only 16,000 people responded,
Yes.
You don't want to be bigging that up more than it is when nearly 2 million people could have responded. That's kind of really all I'm saying about that. So I'm going to work backwards through the document, apart from February 25, the mayor to finalise the LTP. So whatever we say today, does that count at all, or are you just disseminating information to us?
I'm just here today to tell you about the local transport plan.
Fine, so it doesn't really matter what we say then. That's excellent.
Always.
It might influence things in the future. Let's be positive.
In terms of what Rochelle mentioned, in terms of the delivery plan in particular, is a live document, so going forward.
It gets better, don't worry. The slight criticism I would have had with the LTP is it should actually be the RTP. If when I saw LTP, I'm thinking about what we call it here is this is the road in your division that we're going to resurface this year. These are the drains we're going to fix. Whereas this is a far better thing, a strategic look at how you're going to get the region moving. So I would have rather it was the regional transport plan myself, but there you go. And you're talking about services, fine, without being overly dependent on car ownership. You know, Stuart, this is going to be, if you can manage this, it'll be a crown and glory. There are parts in Northumberland that you'll never be able to connect with public transport or rail or anything, and we just need to know that that's what's going to happen. And I understand about using electric cars and all the rest of that stuff, but personal forms of transport need to be a key part of the elements that you pull together for Northumberland, because you're never going to get. And a lot of people choose to live here for that very reason. They don't want to be on a busy road. They don't want buses passing every 10 minutes. They want to live in the countryside. But they have to realise that if they do that, there are disbenefits as well as benefits. Like, you're not going to be able to get a bus every half hour. You're not going to be able to walk to the shop. If you've chosen to live like that, then you have to take the consequences of that. So
I think we fully recognise that point.
Yeah.
The example I would use is with the bus service improvement plan funding. That was a significant allocation of funding that the region got to improve bus services across the region, be it improve frequency, improve reach of the service or infrastructure to bus priority instance. And one thing we've been absolutely clear on within Northumberland is we're not going to spend that money on services that have no chance of succeeding. So that in 2 or 3 years' time, we set expectations. We've introduced a half-hourly frequency to this community that people start to make lifestyle choices based on that bus frequency. We know in our heart of hearts when that funding runs out in 2 or 3 years' time, there's not a hope in hell that it's going to be commercial. So we're going to have to pull it, and then the negative consequences of that. So we've been absolutely clear. We've probably spent more slowly than what we otherwise would have done, but everything we've put in place, we reckon is a fighting chance of at the end of it being sustainable and being longer serving.
And just to emphasise a point, Councillor, the plan does include a significant amount of road improvements. We've obviously had disappointment on dueling of the A1, but that still remains a regional priority for us and for the mayor, I have to say. The A19 junctions, the A69 and works to add additional dueling sections on there because that road is dangerous and does need its own improvement. And then in addition on some of the rail bits, a stopping service is still a significant aspiration between Newcastle and Edinburgh, serving Berwick, but also Widdrington, Pegswood. A new station at Belford is included in that, in the sort of short to longer term aspirations, as well as whenever we can actually secure the funding, we will step through and implement that. So there's lots of stuff in there, in addition to the very nice and appropriate stuff on local cycling and walking and recruitment plans and so on and so forth, which I know is going to be probably your next question. So I thought I'd give you that little segue, which you can also use a segue, I think, on
I'm very good, Chair.
on a cycle route.
I'm just pleased that you recognise that, Stuart, because to me that's important. That if you start down this road thinking that you're going to get everybody on the bike, it's unrealistic. And so long as you've got in your mind that people will still use the cars in rural Northumberland, and where you're going to have strategic bus routes that people can rely on, you stand a chance of them using it. Yeah. But if you've got this, we'll get everybody on a bus, everybody get rid of the car, it'll be, think what's more likely to happen than. And I know you're good at that, so that's great. Page 24, I can't really argue with any of the 5 things that you've got there. All of them are great, and most of them are achievable. And I think if we can get to this kind of Oyster card for the region, that would just be really something. Yeah. That is something you can actually do. You just buy the technology, and if I could get on a bus in Berwick and go to Alnwick and then get on the train from Alnwick to Crownick, and that would just be great. So press on with that. And the other things, the other priorities are sensible and realistic. So well done. And the only other thing I really was going to say was about, I don't know whether it's me, but I don't know why we're fixated on building cycle paths. I could hate you to some Beresford Road in Seaton Sluice. I drive up that road quite often. And more often than not, as you know, there's a cycle track right there running parallel with the road. And cyclists are still.
Everyone's not on the road, everyone's always on that path. I use the cycle tracks.
You might, but loads of people don't, and it infuriates me. Well, because we are spending millions and millions and millions of pounds on a few people when we could be investing that money doing better things. So transport.
A quick response to that, because it's ever so slightly political, and there's bits of it that are technical. A lot lot of that money that is spent on.
I'm not saying it's our money.
It's money from elsewhere, as you know, and we.
But sorry, Richard.
We accept.
Chair, I must just interrupt the deputy leader, because all of the money that you're talking about is come from us one way or another.
It has.
It's gone to the central government.
Yeah, okay,
and the government are giving it back to the council to put cycling tracks.
If we can just, can I just say something as chair? So we are here to hear about the North East Transport Plan and the North East Combined Authorities plans and how Northumberland fits in.
I beg your pardon.
These cycle projects were NCC projects that got secured funding from central government. So they're really out of the context of today's discussion.
I apologise.
So,
but all I would say is that as far as the regional transport plan is concerned, you need to put that realism back in, Stuart. If you've got the thing about you're always going to need cars in the rural bit, then think actually positively about how people perambulate around town.
And just a quick response, we've got a government that seems to have listened to Kemi today and has changed the foreign aid budget for defence budget. If they want to change the cycle.
Right, let's stay away from politics, please.
If they want to listen to blah blah blah. If they want to listen to Northumberland Council, I would happily accept more money to Julie A1 and less money to.
Okay, Richard, right.
I hope it's given.
Would you try and keep politics out of this committee, please?
Michelle.
I think what we've got today is a flavour of how Jeff's going to spend his retirement on the bus and not cycling around.
Let us to the editor.
Nick,
I just think on the cycling point, if I may, in terms of, I think that frustrates us all when you put that infrastructure in place, and then there was those people who would continue to use the main road. That's their prerogative, that's their right. But I think the target of the investment we're looking at is the people who wouldn't feel safe to do that. So those off-road, segregated, safe cycle routes, that's for the cyclists of tomorrow that don't feel safe in cycling on the road. So I think there's a compromise somewhere in the scale of infrastructure we can get to that meets everyone's satisfaction. And I think infrastructure is perhaps not even half the battle, as much as it's the revenue funding to kind of the education, the hearts and minds, the working with the kids at school to make them safe and active cyclists. So that's an element as well. But yeah, point noted.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Nick.
Thanks very much. I've got two questions for Rochelle. First one about buses, the next one about disused railway lines. So on the buses, I'm worried that Northumberland's free town centre car parking is subsidising the use of private motor vehicles and accelerating the decline of rural bus services. And I was just wondering, did the mayor have powers to bring Northumberland in line with the other northeast local authorities, which are
Wow.
In terms of enforcing car parking charges?
Yeah, bring Northumberland in line with other.
So it's a technical question, and I think it deserves to be answered, but we're not going to have a political debate about it, okay? I just because there'll be, we'll end up with a massive bun fight. So I suppose the question for Rochelle is
the rest of us against
well, you're probably right, but technically, could the mayor impose bus town centre parking charges on all towns in the county?
No, it's town council, isn't it?
No. Okay, so the answer's no, Nick.
Second questions on disused railway lines. We've got loads of disused railway lines in Northumberland, and they've all got potential to become greenways, which would be brilliant things in a number of ways. Great for health, reducing carbon emissions, and boosting the economy. But I don't think there was any mention of greenways on disused railway lines in the transport plan. I'm just wondering if this is something that the mayor is aware of, and if she has any plans to take advantage of the amazing potential that we have here in Northumberland.
I can get this one. So within the delivery plan, it's scheme, I'm just saying, get your motion. There's a scheme NO17 and the delivery plan, recreational cycle network development in Northumberland. Capital investments targeted at improving the walking and cycling networks in Northumberland to support greater opportunities for recreational cycling and accessing the visitor attractions across the county by active modes. So that's not specific to greenways, but it was kept fairly generic at the point in which we pulled this together, because we're still waiting for that rural LC whip type cycle guidance to come forward, so we get a better understanding of what we can do when and where. There is a line in there, that kind of a marker that, and that comes forward, we can look at that in more detail.
Great, thank you. Do you mind would I be permitted just briefly to respond to Councillor Reid's point about cycle paths?
I really, Nick, I stopped the debate with other people. We can have a chat at the end once the meeting's formally closed, and we can have a big discussion.
You're not on, Chair.
Yeah. My turn. Very straight, quick three questions. £8.2 billion worth of projects in the pipeline, which is a huge amount of money and very aspirational, I'm sure. What sort of budgets are we actually working with secured at the moment? I know the timescales are sort of 2 years, 4 years, and 6 years. But does 8.2 billion represent 20 years, 10 years, 50 years?
So 8.2 billion is for the whole pipeline right up to 2040.
Right.
So
Okay.
if we look at the first phase up to, I think it's 2027.
Yeah.
A lot of that is already funded.
Right.
Some that isn't, but we have got routes to
Yeah.
look to get that funding. But yes, that amount is for the whole programme.
Yeah, and we'll get an idea in the detail when the plan's released, and yeah, great. Just to connect, I hardly dare raise this now, but connected to some of the discussions earlier about actually getting to public transport, and this is something I raised in the pre-meet, but around cycling provision. A lot of people, so if you live at the top end of Corbridge, it's a long walk, it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes to the railway station. You could cycle down, but only if you have somewhere safe either to leave your bike or you can actually fit it on the train. Trains on the Tyne Valley line only take 2 bikes. And buses don't take any, I think, apart from the Hadrian's Wall bus. So are you aware if it's part of the Mayor's plans to actually try and address those problems?
I guess mobility hubs is one of the options, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. So we are looking at mobility hubs across the northeast as part of the transport plan. So they will be hubs where they've got a mixture of different transport measures. You would have cycle hire schemes in there, you would have cycle parking, you might have car clubs and so on. So that would link up obviously public transport network and make sure you can do the last mile part of your journey by a sustainable form instead of having to rely on the car all the time. So that is in there, and that's something we are keen to progress.
Great. Okay, that's brilliant. That's good news.
I guess cycles on the buses or trains themselves, and I think the bus operators are. It's not something they're actively pursuing. Whether that, if bus franchising does go ahead, that may be something the mayor would wish to consider.
Yeah.
And I guess the same with trains. It's the capacity is limited, and it's you take your chances half the time.
But in India, they might have a big bike rack on the back of the bus, and people just stick the bus on a bike on it, and then jump on the bus. And there are solutions, aren't there? And on the top.
I think just to add to that, Chess. So that's something that I definitely would endorse and hope that will come to fruition in terms of the plan. That there would be more places where you can actually park your bike and have it secure. But more than that, that it's secure and under the watch of somebody or some CCTV, because the big distraction or detractor from wanting to do it. You often spend quite a lot of money on your bike.
You do.
My bike, I wouldn't want it to be nicked. It's all the hassle that you then go through and so on and so forth. It's quite easy for someone to take a bike lock off through one form or of means or another. So if we can build that into plans for the stations and up and down the county, but also the bus stations as well, I think that'd be an incredibly positive thing. It's a little bit like the point that was made earlier about feeling safe on the roads. Not everyone that does feel safe on the roads comes to the party making. It's about that full journey experience.
Brilliant, thank you. And then my final question, very quickly, is in rural areas, there will be some people that are entirely dependent on cars because the bus is once a day, or if at all. And some of those rural areas have sort of pockets of deprivation, and people can't afford driving lessons, young people in particular. Is that something that has actually, and I don't know what the solution is, whether it's a mayoral thing or a council thing or a government thing, but is that something that is on the mayor's radar?
Do you answer it, not me? Yeah, so transport related social exclusion, which obviously that is part of, is something that's really high on our agenda. We have brought it out in the local transport plan because we want to make sure that people are linked to opportunities and to healthcare as well. So we do realise it's not always possible by car. So in those rural areas, obviously, we need to work with yourselves to identify what those solutions are.
Yeah.
Are there things such as community-led transport? Is it car clubs? Is it some sort of taxi service that could be provided that joins people up with the public transport network? That is what we need to work with yourselves on.
Okay, thank you. Great. Eileen.
Well, you've nicked some of my stuff and you've nicked some of my stuff. Right? Mine's about cycling, as you can imagine, right? And went on and on and on all the time, ever since all this new generation money came in about having really good quality, lockable cycle hubs. What I drive, I've got an electric bike, thousands of quids it cost us, right?
Yeah.
I want it to be safe. And I want to use the stations, right? But I want to lock my bike there. I don't want to take my car. I want to use the station. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, Richard, but I put a petition out a few days ago, about 10 days ago, about Cooper Road, because I felt as if the regen team would not listen to what I was saying about cycling up Cooper Road. It's the last place anybody in their right mind would want to go on their bike. I felt I wasn't listened to. I went to the town council, they felt not listened to, because the regen team would not listen to what I was saying. It's a worse road in Blythe to put a cycle track. You're going to cause more chaos by narrowing it, and it stinks of petrol. And I want to go to that station, and I want to go on my bike, but I don't want to go up Cooper Road. Not even in 9 days, Richard, I had nearly 700 signatures against it. Now, you did say at full council you were going to review it. I want to be part of that review, because I want to be part of that, because I feel quite passionate about everybody who signed this petition against that cycle route up Cooper Road. This is not political.
No,
This is, let's get this right from the beginning.
understood. And the chair will forgive us for being ever so slightly specific about a project, I hope. When I say that already long before this was as more of a public thing, I'd certainly been flagging up issues around Cooper Road. I've had it from you, from Councillor Erskine, from others as well, who've raised it as an issue. And we're going back to the drawing board a bit on that. Stuart might have something that he would like to add, but Cooper Road is probably the most challenging road in the whole county. In terms of
I would use a much better route.
And I've had 2 or 3 suggestions on alternative routes, and I've shared them, I think, with the team. But Stuart might want to specifically comment on it, or might.
I mean, I've got it
on the spot there.
No, that's fine. So we are reviewing the proposal. We are looking at alternative options. The challenge we have is that, and apologies for getting all technical, is that the guidance LTN 120 is that, cycle provision has to, a number of criteria has to be
the quickest,
the most direct route, segregated, reallocation of road space. So all that leads you to the corridor around Cooper Road. We completely understand the concerns. We are going to review what the options are, but looking at alternative options does come with risk, because the funding that is available means LTN 120 compliance has a timing ending to so long as we take to review.
Okay, well, can we just stop any more? Because it's a 3. I mean, I know there are 3 Blythe members here, but we did say that we didn't want specific discussion about Eileen. And I know you've had topics you wanted.
I'm really passionate about this.
And that's come through loud and clear. But if we can sort of perhaps take it up as a discussion offline,
I would
then
really appreciate that.
it is a specific ward or town related issue.
I've not been listened to.
Yeah.
For months.
Well, I think everybody's heard that.
You've been listened. Well, you're listening. Well, you've had confirmation from the regen team that it's being looked at. You've had a confirmation from me that I've instructed that it's to be looked at. And so please do.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just say about the Oyster card?
Yeah.
If other towns and other places can have an Oyster card, we can do it. And we can do it better. Just look at what they're doing. We make it better.
From what I read in the papers, that's about to be announced. So it's sort of,
all right.
yeah.
It's not the easiest thing in the world.
No.
Not, but yeah, that's where we need to get to.
Great. Mark and then Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's a nicely rounded document. I think I'm really pleased to see that you all understand there's large parts of the rural area will have to continue using cars. They are going to be socially impacted by things. I'm thinking Willow Ward, because of the reduction in dualling and the A1, the safety. More people are using rural roads, which is impacting the safety and the use of locals. So I'm really pleased we're going to keep on the pressure for like the A1 dualling and access to East Coast Main Line up for us, more rural access points. I think will suck people onto public transport. And I'm concerned that the additional taxes on 4x4s, the crew cab pickups, there's a lot of my residents, that's the vehicle they have to have because of access. And you mentioned bad weather in here, but it's going to cost them a lot more now going forward for them to have those vehicles. And that could, put people into deprivation to get access to public transport. It's going to be difficult on the border edges. We definitely fill it up with us for the Scottish border. There's not a lot of connection between us, especially in charges, working between the authorities. So, but I understand that the 7 combined authorities, that's great. It's going to be fluent, but, do think about us on the border is incredibly hard and expensive for us to provide a service. But we need to, there is no border, is there? It's the same road, it's the same people. We need to make sure we represent everybody. The bus and improvement plan has been absolutely fantastic for the North. I can't sing its praises enough. The Wool Awards had 3 additional services put into there, and your team have been so tight, it's fantastic. Because they'll look at every penny. They're not just throwing money around. It's about sweating the assets that we've got. We've just held a public bus consultation area in the Wool Award over 2 sites to get what the people's viewpoints is, and your team's ability to actually take on changes of times. And some are actually saying we don't need a 5-day service, we're happy with a 3, but on different times. So the team's been excellent at looking at that, and it has to be sustainable, but it's for locals and tourism. And that brings me to the point of number 1, the planning journeys and information. That's really hard to do, because if you go to a rural bus stop, you have a time plan of that one bus that passes. There's no understanding of the connectivity from hubs like Sawulla to Alnwick to Morpeth. And I think that needs to be digitalised, especially in the central hubs. It's a project I've been looking at for about 3 years, and that also links in with the previous discussion we've had today. That can be used in emergency events as well. It's a way of us communicating with the public and tourism. People come to Wooler, and I've got local people that are using the new bus service because it's such scenic. Will jump on the bus and go for a run for 2 or 3 quid. They enjoy the day out. So I think we could use that more if they had the bigger picture, understand that how fluently they can travel up and down the region. And I'm really pleased you've got education in there. I think as children want different types of education through 6th form, I know one of the new services that we've put on direct to Newcastle from Wooler is being used by children getting into different types of education, and that's been a huge benefit. So for me, really positive, and please pass on my thanks to the team, because that bus service improvement plan's been great for the rural North.
There's a point on the digitising the information is something we've battled with for a while, and it's the right point to make, but it needs to be balanced against the fact that it's often the person that needs that information the most is the person that either chooses not to or doesn't have the ability to access that digital information.
Yeah.
So it's how we balance that one, but it's a point well made.
I think the project we've looked at is actually a digital screen in hubs. So it's instead of the piece of paper that's often wet, it's that bigger screen that's fluent throughout. And people can normally get to the hubs, whether it's Alnwick, Berwick, Wooler, like thinking of the North. But actually to understand, and from there on, people seem to get stuck at that point. So if there was local...
Well, that point up, I think part of the problem the council made, and certainly even my residents get it, well, we've had a shortage of bus drivers because we've had a bit of an issue with bus drivers going into other professions recently. But it's about confidence that your bus is going to turn up on time to make your various connections and so on, isn't it? And so there's definitely things can be done around that. But if you look at the Metro app now on the pop app, it'll show you exactly where your Metro is, what station it's stuck at, and what its problem is, or what have you. And we mustn't be in an age now where that isn't feasible in terms of trackers and so on and so forth for most public transport, I would think. So something to ponder.
Great, excellent, thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Chair. Like Aileen, probably a lot of my points have been taken up, but I want to take it back to the combined authority itself and the members that are in there. You know, you've got cities and you've got semi-cities and what we class as rural areas. They'll all have their specific priorities. So the reality is, you know, them conversations have to be very live. I know that our representative goes in and always shouts for the rural areas. But people have to realise you can call Northumberland rural, but it's not, it's semi-rural. You get down where the population is, where the southeast part of Northumberland is, and we are as cut off as some of the rural areas. So I take on board your points about the bus links, and I very much welcome them. So to name places like Linton, Lymouth, Newbiggin, and even these people that want the connectivity without using their vehicles and their cars, and a lot of people can't afford electric cars. So the reality is that we have to look at it, the link up there. And I think it was pointed that do we need all these big buses anymore? Do we have, if we look at smaller buses for those inner town, inner village connection in a timely way to get them to their work, to their education, to the hospitals, to the hospital appointments. And the other thing is, you know, we've had a discussion at Camas about, you know, new businesses coming. And in the early days, a big concern was how do we get what we want to their new jobs, and how do we get them through the shift patterns, and in turn we support that business coming in. So that has to be thought of. We should, and coming back to Mark's point, I've got it down here. It's the info at the bus stops. You go down to London, you know when you're going to come. You know, prior to the Ashton Blythe time or the Northumberland time, look. We, you know, I've stood there waiting on a bus, and the next bus is probably 40 minutes to go to Newcastle in the middle of winter. That's not good. So the reality is we need that information. No, I made routes with officers around supporting this in my small member schemes, and I think the price came back at £3,000 for each of these units. And I just thought that somewhere, even if we got to the popular bus stops, can I say, and put that information where the population, the residents are using it, I think it needs to be trialled. And I'm mindful that that responsibility doesn't lie on the combined authority. That information has to be delivered by Northumberland County Council, because that is their responsibility to put the information on the notice boards. You touched on enforcement. I very, very much welcome the idea of enforcement, not only on the buses, on the trains, dare I say the cycle tracks, and all of the surrounding areas as well. We have to tighten that up. So if somebody's going to a bus station, a train station, that should be an area of place where people can travel, get their buses, wait around and feel safe on that route to get there. And that enforcement only works, not by putting a sign up saying I'm going to fine you £100. This enforcement works from day one, where people get fined, they get cautioned, and we use every tool in the book from day one. But don't give warnings anymore, because people know right and wrong. And when you come back to elderly people, vulnerable people travelling, we need them protected. And that happens all over the country, all over our countryside, but mainly where the population is. You also, and I think it was Richard that brought it up about the threat of the rural bus service. Well, Northumberland is your leader keeps saying is fully rural. But I get what you're saying, because I brought it up at the Combined Authority before, that when money gets tight, where's the first thing to come away from? And it's the easy fix. And we're in a game for connectivity. And that has to be looked at as well. Was mentioned about licenses, how we could try and support young people that come from the rural areas into the urban areas for work. But you've also got to think about it. You can't have a black and white policy. You've got to think of the people that live in the urban areas that want to work in the countryside. So there has to be an open policy. That can't just be for where you live. It's what your commitments and your policies are. So that should be open. You also mentioned about reviewing after 3 years, reviewing the service to see if it's viable. I don't think a 3 year, that shouldn't have a 3 year thing. It should be a 6 monthly review, because at the end of the day, that's money going out of the window. If a service isn't being used, it should be reviewed on a 6 monthly cycle. And if it's working, it's working. If it's not, then you've got an opportunity to go back to those people wherever they are and say, look, you either use it or you lose it. And it's as simple as that. We shouldn't be, if it looks as though it's failing in 6 months' time, let's run the bus back and forward for another 2.5 years. No, that's wasting ratepayers' money.
Great. So Stuart, do you want to comment on any of those?
Just one more point. One more point. You said that you were going to do consultations around the parish and town councils. Please be mindful. Through the regeneration policies, and it's probably happened in Blythe and it happened in Ashen, that you're consulting with the town and parish councils. You're forgetting about the county councillors as well, because we, not all were on town or parish councils. We need to know what's going on. So I know that seems a bit in your face, but it is meant to be.
Great, thank you.
Just, I think the point around the 3 years was a point in time at which the BSIP funding is likely to end, but absolutely the team do have access to patronage data, and they can evolve the service as it goes forward during that time to better reflect passenger demand. So yeah, it wouldn't be at the end of 3 years, wouldn't be the first point at which we review the data and decide whether it stays or goes. So yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Jimmy,
just a similar thing really. Has this report took into consideration the accommodation of people who wait for the bus?
So,
big for Ashen, it's got
there's a work
bus stops all over the place, and pouring with rain, you're getting soaking wet. And now I'm a fully fledged bus user. I just wanted to see if that was being taken into consideration.
So there's a current work stream as part of the bus service improvement plan funding to provide improved bus shelter facilities across the county. So it'd be looked at.
Excellent. Good.
Which right, well, it's a bit longer in Northumberland than it is in Durham.
So slightly bad news on that, because I think the first one is probably going to be Alec. Long sort after. And I really appreciate it.
But if we're doing it in alphabetical order, Ashington will follow fairly quickly.
Explain fairly quickly.
You're looking at not Wooler. It's the opposite end.
You got the bamboo.
Great. Well, that has been fascinating, and obviously transport is a topic that sort of people are very interested in. You've felt some of the passion in the room, but thank you to both. It's been a really great presentation, and thank you for taking the time to come and visit us. And good luck with all your plans. And we look forward to seeing the actual sort of detailed projects when they're announced. And thank you.
Thank you for the invite to attend today.
Right. Thank you. Sean, is there anything on the monitoring report that you want to flag up?
Just to say that the next meeting is the last meeting of the current administration for this committee. We've got 2 items: the woodland and tree strategy and local nature recovery strategy. They are both long-standing issues for the work programme.
Yeah.
And sorry, I'll let you ask the questions.
You know what I'm going to ask?
Yes, please.
Whether there's any word on whether the leader has written to the MPs asking them to honour the promise of highways maintenance funding.
Yes, the leader did write and he has received one reply.
He's written to them all.
He's written to them all, yeah.
Great. And also, any update on the review of the library service and development of the new library strategy?
Yep, I got in touch with the presenters of the report when they came in July. The library strategy is being developed. There is a consultation taking place, but unfortunately, and given the proximity to the election, it is unlikely that it'll come forward this side of May. But it is in progress, and it should be great for members.
The Green administration has had to deal with it.
So do you mean the review is underway and the strategy as well?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Can I just ask that, you've said we were to 4 MPs, can I ask which one actually bothered to respond?
I don't know which one it was. I mean, they're all Labour members. Yeah. I don't know which one.
One of the 4 responded to the authority.
You can ask, we'll find out. Well, I'll ask Glenn. We'll find out.
Do you know very much?
I don't know at all. I'd be tempted to have some sort of sweepstake, but
So we've got no urgent business, and I think we're about to have a debate between Jeff and Nick on cycling, and I'm selling tickets.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. It's been